The Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party wrapped up its four-day meeting where the party's power players discussed China's major future policies. The closed-door plenum was watched across the globe with much attention drawn to what kind of solutions the Chinese leadership would come up to address a pile of pending issues, such as the trade war with the U.S. and the ongoing protests in Hong Kong. Today, we go in-depth on this meeting of high significance and the possible impact on South Korea with Dr. Choo Jae-woo, Professor of Chinese Studies at Kyung Hee University. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
The meeting of the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee is China's biggest meeting of the year. Could you first tell us the significance of this huge meeting? What kind of implications does this meeting have on China's politics and the economy?
Yes, it's an annually held central congregation of the Chinese political committee members, which is comprised of about approximately 250 personnel. So it's relatively big size congregation there. So on an annual basis, they are held because they want to review what had gone on in the past during the year and what they have set forth for next year, so that they can provide some guidelines as to how the Chinese Communist Party is going to lead the nation.
Now, this week's Central Committee plenum was the fourth of its kind, with the third Central Committee plenum taking place in February last year.
Yes.
So it means the meeting convened in about 20 months.
That's right.
Why the long gap this time?
Yeah, there was a long layoff there, indeed, because if you remember, if you recollect a little bit, after the so-called 19th plenary session was held in November of 2017, and before March last year, before the National People's Congress was convened, in between that period, there were about 6 months, and during that period, the first three plenum was held for a significant reason. If you recollect a little bit, I think the world was caught off guard when Xi Jinping announced to amend his constitution so that his tenure could be given extension indefinitely. That's right. So the first three plenum was concentrated during that period before the National People's Congress can be convened, so that after getting approval from the party, then they can move forward with the resolution to the People's Congress for the approval.
Now, as you've just mentioned, President Xi Jinping further gripped his power last year by amending the Constitution, seeking a lifetime tenure as president. But his tenure as the General Secretary of the Central Committee, as well as the Chairman of the Central Military Commission, will come to an end in 2023, if I'm right. And so much attention was drawn to whether Xi's successor for those two posts will be unveiled during this week's meeting. What are you hearing so far on that?
Oh, nothing much, nothing much. There were some personal movements at the provincial level and some local city level posts, including party secretary level there. But so far, I think it's too early to say anything about that. And if it takes some precedence in the past, usually it's 70 years prior to the succession of the power that the higher in apparent will be nominated 70 years prior to his official takeover of the party leadership. So it's a little bit too early. It's 2019, so maybe in 2023, probably in a few more years.
So it's too early to call who will succeed President Xi for those two very important posts, and it is a very closed-door meeting. So many important parts are still pretty much in the dark. Now, another point at the center of attention is China's direction of economic policies. As we all know, China, the trade war between Washington and Beijing is still ongoing, which is slowing down China's economy to a significant extent. What kind of outcome do you expect from the meeting on China's future economic policies?
Usually at these plenum sessions, they don't really talk about and they don't really discuss, all these, political economic or socioeconomic issues. but there were some speculations from foreign media reports that there could be some discussion about that, but officially there's nothing been discussed yet. Usually the plenum sessions, they tend to focus more on politics and on socio-political issues. But we can draw some economic implications from these discussions. For instance, this plenum, their main agenda, main theme was building a foundation for future governance of the Chinese Communist Party as well as the government. So I guess the follow-up measures will be, some reforms of the apparatus and governmental structure there. But that's for the future issues. But this time they laid a foundation, and I think we can draw some, economic implications from these measures. And one salient point is they're going to try to fix the governance structure in a more rational way, according to Chinese Communist Party, as well as they would like to build a much more flexible institutions so that they can adapt more responsibly to the changes occurring outside and internally.
So you've mentioned that politics
Yes.
is the main focus
That's
of
right.
the plenum,
That's
Central
right.
Committee plenum, and
That's
not
right.
the economy.
Yes.
Then taking aside the plenum for a bit, let's just talk about China's economy as a
Yes.
whole. Many believe that China will now scrap
Yes.
its Made in China 2025,
Yes.
which was first issued in 2015, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
To upgrade China's manufacturing capabilities.
Yes.
Many believe that China will now scrap that and
Yes.
come up with a new economic plan that could replace it. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a growing speculation on that point, and I think China is taking a wait-and-see approach here, because they now, they understand how the outside world is concerned about, the contents of the Made in China 2025, and therefore they would like to amend some sections within that report, because, obviously they're being ill-perceived, contrary to its intent. So they're ready to amend the report, but I don't think they're going to totally scrap it. But at the same time, they're going to be more flexible, and I think that final outcome will come out only following the ratification of the new trade pact with the United States.
Now, how about the Hong Kong protests? What kind of discussions do you think took place during this week's meeting on the protests in Hong Kong?
Well, that'd be really difficult to guess, because officially they haven't talked about it. There's no report coming out from Chinese side on that particular issue. But if we go back to, in September, there was another, party meeting was held at the political level, and there the world kind of expected some kind of resolution to come out, but it didn't come out at that particular meeting either. But what we can draw from what we can infer to the statements that, Carrie Lam came out on celebrating the October 1st 70th anniversary of the foundation of the People's Republic of China, that the Hong Kong Authority announced to withdraw from all these acts, and so I guess that has been the directive of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, it is a very
Yes.
sensitive issue, so we were expecting that not much would
That's
be
right.
revealed about Hong Kong
Yes.
protests. Now to the impact on the South Korean politics and
Yes.
the economy.
Yes.
What are some of the important points that South Korea needs to watch out for from this year's Central Committee plenum?
From this year on, I think we have to really pay attention to the institutional changes that Chinese Communist Party is going to pursue in time ahead, because this year they're going to lay a foundation, and next year they're heading towards more detailed reforms on the apparatuses and institutions of the government as well as the party, which means the whole institution, not only the political institution, but it's going to affect the standing of the economic institutions too. So I think we have to pay really keen attention to what kind of changes of these political institutional reforms is going to bring to the economic side, and I think that's going to change a lot.
Could you be a little more specific
Yes.
on what kind of impact it would have, how it would affect South Korea's politics?
Oh, on South Korean politics, I think, well, with institutional reforms, first it's going to definitely affect the, economic relations and that the side effects or, the aftermath of the institutional reforms might have some impact on South Korean politics, and in the sense that because we're disengaged with China at this time, there's no summit talk at the summit level, and even the working level, high level contacts are limited. So hopefully, through these institutional changes, China is going to feel compelled to open more to the outside world, and hopefully that's going to have some positive impact on its relationship with South Korea too, because obviously not only South Korea is really heavily dependent on China, but also to China, South Korea is also third largest trading partner and third largest investor to China. So with this, hopefully the merits of the institutional reform is going to bring some positive effects on the economic relationship between the two countries and later on the political side too.
Now let's talk a bit about the ongoing China-U.S. trade war.
Yes.
Now, many believe that the two were supposed to meet and hold talks on
That's
trade
right. That's
during
right.
the APEC summit,
Yes.
which was supposed to be held in Chile
That's right.
next month. But
Yes.
Chile, as you know,
Yes.
canceled the APEC summit due to growing protests
That's
in the
right.
country.
That's right.
But do you think Washington and Beijing will go ahead and make a rearrangement and hold talks anyway elsewhere?
Oh yes, that's most likely. Obviously, I think they're on the verge of concluding the new pact, and I think if we recollect a little bit earlier this year, in following the Hanoi summit between the United States and North Korea, they were scheduled to China and the United States leaders were scheduled to meet up in Hainan Island of China, and they thought the pact was ready for ratification. But obviously, Trump was displeased with the outcomes of the summit with North Korea, and he decided not to go to Hainan Island. And I think there were some reports that the United States side was not too satisfied with the outcomes of the potential new pact with China. So it was called off. But just like in the previous case, there could be a possibility that Donald Trump could travel to China, or he could invite Xi Jinping to Washington or the United States or somewhere else for ratification of the new pact if it is readily available.
Now, one last question for you before you go. You've mentioned that this Central Committee plenum is mainly focused on politics.
Yes.
But what other important points are there that you want to address before you go?
Yes, Chinese Communist Party is really moves in motion with their own schedule, and they try to be really punctual with their schedule. And this plenum was really important because they laid a foundation for governance of the party as well as the government. And next year they're going to go into more details of the institutional reforms, because their schedule by year 2021, they want to really lay a solid foundation for governance. And by year 2035, they want to complete that institutional reforms for both the nation as well as the party. So I think we should pay really keen attention to the institutional reforms pursued by the CCP.
All right, let's keep close tabs on China's next move, China's possible institutional reform, and
Yes.
how it also affects South Korea. Thank you, Dr. Ju, for your insights tonight.
Thank you.